Welcome back to the Smugglers Den. This is episode 53. As always, thank you to swdestiny.com for hosting the Smugglers Den, and thank you ever so much to my Patreon subscribers. You make this show happen, bottom line. Any amount you want to contribute is amazing. I have a Patreon Discord channel as well, so if you do sign up, make sure you're hitting us up over there. Lots of stuff happening. And I would like to bring in this week the whipping boy of me, the Mr. Top 8 himself, but not Top 4, the Rebel Spy. Mike, what's up?
What's up, dude?
So, in case you couldn't tell from that, we were at a regional this weekend. I'm going to say the biggest regional because we had 100 plus people paid. I'm gonna call it 100 plus.
I think that's fair.
I mean, if they paid, they were in it, even if they took all L's. I'm just gonna say that. All right, I actually don't know what the biggest one is.
You pay to get in, even if you don't go, you still paid. You're still in. I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna call out Mr. James Stevenson directly for his 0-8 performance. I was a little surprised by that one. Austin as well, 0-8. Where were you guys? Come on.
Wow, 0-8, man.
0-8 because they didn't show up. By the way, I'm not calling anyone out for actually going 0-8. If someone went 0-8, I would not call them out. I would say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so I guess let's start here, Mike. What was your preparation like going into this regional?
So I'm not super good at preparing for things, just in general.
Seems like an awful trait.
I was trying to do a bit better of a job this time. And so basically what I tried to do was test out as many decks as I could for like a couple weeks before, settle on one within like 3, 4, 5 days of playing in the event, and then just like jam on that a bunch until I find a deck list that I really liked. So that did not happen.
Well, it didn't happen. Okay.
I did play a bunch of decks. And I mean, I probably played like 12 to 15 different decks just on Tabletop Simulator over the course of like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And like the deck that I ended up playing, the mill deck with Jar Jar, that was actually a deck that I had come across when I was playing around with Finn, trying to make Finn work and see what I could do there. Yeah. And then I played against that. It was Mill. I like Mill. I had Jar Jar. I was like, well, I could bring Jar Jar to a regional. Why not? And so I tried to build the guy's deck from memory, and then I ended up tweaking it to where it didn't really it wasn't really that similar anymore. But yeah, I found that I really liked that. Towards the end of my testing, I was testing between like that and then 2 other decks. One was like Sabine Ezra, which I hate that deck. Yeah. One of the reasons why I didn't bring it is because I hate playing it. I hate playing against it. It's just not fun for me.
I gotta admit, I was really worried you were gonna bring that deck, and yeah. I hate playing against that deck because I feel like you either win or lose, and skill is much less important. It's just rolls, and I just don't like that kind of game.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, and that's one of the big reasons why I didn't actually bring. Yeah. But then like two days before the event, like we all got together at a local shop with like John Bruno and then a bunch of other guys, and we played some games, and I kind of just decided that the mill deck is where I wanted to be, and then sort of like the morning of is when I like really finalized the deck list.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. For me, I like to be very well prepared. Like I'm kind of the opposite of you. Like I want to pick a deck a couple weeks out, run through every matchup, just have a deep well of knowledge to draw from during my games. I don't want to be thinking like, oh, gee whiz, I wonder how this deck plays against Sabine Ezra, like a regular meta deck, right? I want to know. Like I want to know what I need to mulligan for, what they're mulliganing for, what the ideal start is, what my win condition is, what cards I have to have, all those kind of details. So that requires quite a bit of testing. I also like to have a really strong hold on the meta.
Mm-hmm.
And none of that happened for me this event, and it left me in a really weird spot. I mean, first of all, the meta was so in flux; it was hard to have a really hard handle on it. And those
Yeah.
Poe decks came, or the Hondo decks came in at the last regional, and people were like, "Oh my God, Hondo's the best!" And I kind of freaked out and was like, "Do I not know how to evaluate cards? Because I think Hondo's fine, but I don't think he's the best." And then in my own play testing, when I tried the deck, I was like, "This isn't as strong as I thought." And then I played against people, and would you agree that it seems like once you know how to handle it, it's not that Hondo's bad, but he's not by any means like a god tier.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Django in
Mm.
in the Awakenings meta, and kind of just like what he did to it, but to even to like a lesser extent, where like people try him out, they're like, oh man, this is the best thing ever, and then people figure out how to play around it, and then they're like, oh wait, this is not the best thing ever.
Yeah,
But
and
he's
there's
still
going to
good.
be more mutations and incarnations of the deck, and maybe it will be better. But that really threw a monkey wrench in, and the whole back and forth on when his legacy is going to release really hurt me a lot. I had some time, we knew all the cards of legacies, and I had some time to play test, but it was like our regional was in such a weird spot, and
Hmm.
legacies hadn't been announced yet. It was like at first I was sure legacies would be a part of it, so I built like a Yoda deck, and then I was convinced that legacies absolutely could not be unless it miraculously hits like on this day, and we're like, that's true because it has to be legal for 7 days, totally forgetting that that's not the case. They could just drop it at any moment, and then sure enough they do. They're like, hey, it's coming out in like a week, and then your regional's the next weekend. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So that made it really hard for me. It's so interesting because a new meta is so fun and dynamic, but it's only fun and dynamic when you have time to engage it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Did
fair.
you feel that way, Mike? Did you feel like you just didn't have enough time to properly prepare, or did you feel like you did have enough?
Um, I, I, I feel like I had the time in terms of uh, like weeks to prepare or whatever.
Hmm.
Whether or not I actually use that time, wisely is
Gotcha.
debatable. Um, the other problem is that like I didn't have a group of people to prepare with
Hmm.
and to play games with and try to just like really figure it out. And doing it on your own on tabletop simulator with random people is not the ideal way to do that.
No, no, it's
So
not. No, it's absolutely not. We got some games in, but
yeah,
like you saw how much I tested. That was like most of my testing was our couple of games.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
I
and
guess all having said
it was
all that, the point is this. I went into this event thinking this is probably going to be the moment where I just get whipped. Like I'm not prepared. I don't know the meta. I just grabbed a deck that seems consistent, made changes without testing in any way, theoretical changes, and decided I was going to have to wing it in every game. Like all of my losses, I was like, I don't know why I lost that game. And if you don't know why you lost a game, it means either you're not that good at Destiny, which maybe that's the case. Maybe I'm just bad at Destiny. Or it means you just don't have a full understanding of the matchups and you haven't tested enough. And I really felt like that going in. Like I didn't really know like what my wins were. What my like every time I got paired against someone, unless they were monocolored, I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to win this or not. I'm gonna try to though.
yeah.
It's Bizarro, man. It was Bizarro Land. But I guess I didn't say what I brought.
Did
So I
well.
brought Kylo, new Kylo, Elite, and Elite Mother Talzin. And my theory was this: I have very little time to prepare. I knew Hero Vehicles was the new hot thing. I played it once. It was an absolute train wreck. And I realized that I was going to have to put some time into this to kind of make it work. Whereas the Talz and Kylo deck is about as basic as you get. You roll in, you fix your dice, you do piles of damage, and then you cackle.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
Is that
just you know
so?
fundamentals of Destiny, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of what I went into the event thinking, like, if I don't know what the meta looks like, let's just go for pure consistency and see if that can win out. All right, so I already heard a lot about your day on the Jedi Council, but why don't you give me a couple highlights? How about this? I'm going to ask you some questions. So your deck is Riken Jar Jar Partisan, am I correct?
It's just those two. No. So, okay, well, first, quick correction, just so that people don't think that I'm in the Jedi Council. Wait, I don't think the Jedi Council is a thing.
Did I say Jedi Council?
Trials.
Jedi Trials, wow. We're starting a new podcast. It's me, you, and D House, and Will, and we're going to be the Jedi Trials. I mean, the Jedi Council. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. All right.
The Smugglers Council.
The Smugglers Council. There you go. That sounds great. All right. So deck. What characters are you using?
Yeah. So the deck was Elite, General Riken, Jedha Partisan, and Jar Jar Binks.
Okay. So I have a couple questions for you.
All right. Let's
I looked at your deck and I said, General Riken has 0 mill sides on his card, and has an ability that flourishes when his fellow characters have shields. Ergo, the obvious choice is kill everyone but General Riken, and then kill him when he literally can't do anything. Did your opponents make the same assessment?
At large, no.
Okay, and so when they went for General Riken first, you won every one of those games, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no.
No.
My one loss in Swiss was to someone who did go for Riken first. I'm pretty sure. I have a fuzzy memory about these things, but I'm pretty sure he went for Riken first.
Sure.
But I went through my cards a bit too quickly. Discarding cards at the end of the turn to draw into things that I thought I needed. And yeah, he actually ended up milling me out. I don't know if he killed any of my characters.
So he was not successful in his strategy of killing Riken, and he did not have a mill deck. Am I correct?
That is correct.
So I think we can still go with he made the wrong choice of going for Riken first, or Riken. Okay.
Yeah, I think going for Riken first was definitely what I wanted to see.
Yeah, so then let's talk about the next thing. Jar Jar. So, Jar Jar's terrible. But did your opponents realize that what they should do before they roll in characters that they want to see big damage sides with is to activate Jar Jar first?
No.
They did not. Okay. So what it sounds to me like is people played against your deck and went, I don't know what to do. I'm going to play against it wrong. Is that right?
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I expected people to figure out the Jar Jar thing a little bit, and I sort of built the deck with that in mind. When I put Con Artist in, when I put 2 Negotiates in, those were all inclusions based around thinking that my opponent would just activate my Jar Jar first action. And then I'd be able to either resolve the cunning die, or be able to negotiate with Jar Jar's die that was already in the pool. But that never actually happened.
I like that idea, though. That's a good strategy. And my point is not in any way to discount how great your deck did. I still think, even played correctly, that's still a very effective mill deck. It's still going to be hard to beat. My point is simply this, that when you bring something new to a tournament, it has a really great effect in that people may just make poor decisions against it, right? Whereas when you bring a known deck, it's like, all right, I know how to handle this. Everyone's been talking about this on the internet. But when you can bring a deck people haven't seen, I feel like you have a distinct advantage. And so I think that was really cool that you were able to bring something that so confounded and baffled people that they played against it wrong all day.
Yeah, I really like doing that. And yeah, I was happy to be able to bring something that, nobody really expected. Everyone was kind of talking about it, at the tables, whoa, this Jar Jar mill deck is making its way up, blah blah blah. So it's to me, I like playing kind of those out there decks that can do well, that nobody really knows how to play around or is expecting. So that's kind of in my domain anyway.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah.
sure. What I also think was interesting about this event is, like, I was at the top tables the whole day, and the people around me were all the people I expected to be at the top tables, right? So I kind of feel like what it also shows us is Destiny is a very high skill game, and
Yeah.
the top players are going to be at the top tables, period. Even if they're playing some oddball Jar Jar deck, right? It's still like Mike is one of the top 12 players in this room. He's going to be at the top tables, even if he has a weird deck, because he's a really good player. So I think that's one of the things I've really been liking. And I want to have a whole podcast dedicated to, like, who are the top players in the game. And I think we can just simply go down, like, people who have done consistently good at, like, Worlds, Gen Con, Nationals, their regionals, their store champs. We see the same names popping out. Like, I haven't heard anything from Taxter in a while. And then, oh, you get a second in a regional. And there's not even the tiniest part of me that's like, oh, really? I'm just like, yeah, that's what Taxter does. He wins Destiny games. Like, that's what I expect. If you said Taxter didn't make the cut at a regional, I'd be like, whoa, dude, what happened? Did he forget how to use Phasma? So, yeah.
I think that's actually one of my favorite part of the games right now. Uh, that good players can do well, and it definitely feels like a skill game right now, at least.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you went 7-1 in Swiss, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
my one loss was to the guy that milled me.
Right. The mill deck, and I almost milled you too. Spoiler.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
So you were guaranteed going into the cut. You're golden. So we'll flip back to me. I used my buy in the first round. I won like my first 2 to 3 more rounds after that. Then I lost to a Sabine deck. The craziest scenario. It was one of those games where I have no idea how I lost. We both ended up with no cards in our deck for several turns, right? It's like Sabine usually just kills you. She doesn't screw with you like she's a cat and you're a ball of string. So I don't know what happened. I have no idea how I couldn't kill Sabine. But I ended up losing that game. I was a little bit frustrated. And then I won all my games until the last game, right? And so I'm 6-1 going in the last game. I've done the math. As long as I lose, I should be in, right? Just because my strength schedule is so good. Then I get the pair down. Oh my goodness. I got paired against somebody who was what does this mean? They're 5-2. Yeah, so they're 5-2, which hurts my strength of schedule substantially, right? Now I feel like I have to win. I play the mirror, but his mirror made better choices. He put No Mercy in, which first time I saw that, Mike, I was like, so you're running a situational even card in a Talzin deck. You, sir, have made some poor choices in your life, but they paid out here. What do you think when you first heard, if you did hear about this?
Yeah.
Did you think it was a strange choice to have No Mercy in a Talzin deck?
Well, I played against that deck the round before you did.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, well, yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. No scouting is a good thing. It's all right.
I had no idea that it was coming, and he was just like, looks at his hand and then like looks at my character and he's like, all right, I'm gonna No Mercy 6 damage at Riken, and then he kills Riken. And I'm just like, what? Like, that card costs 2. You know that, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was super effective.
Imagine if he hadn't killed Riken first.
And him discarding, 4 cards from his hand was not really a bad thing for me.
Yeah, exactly. But what if he hadn't killed Riken first? What if that had been your second yellow character that he was able to pull off the No Mercy? Would it have been a different game?
Probably be done.
All right. Yeah, so you knew about the No Mercy. I didn't. He slaughtered me with the No Mercy. And I really came away from that thinking, like, this is kind of a bunch of bull. I get paired down, and then I get paired down against somebody who's playing a bad card in their deck who happened to win with it. It was a little bit frustrating. I assumed I was out. But I will say that was a long day. And when I realized I was out, I was like, okay, this is probably a good thing. It's been too long of a day. I went 6-2. I haven't practiced at all. That's a pretty reasonable day. I guess I can be satisfied with that. And then I made the tournament. I mean, I made the cut. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that was awesome. We were talking before, like they announced the top 8, and you were like for sure thinking that you were, gonna head home,
Yeah,
and then
I was
all
all
of a
packed
sudden
up.
you were in there.
Yep, I was all packed up, ready to leave. A guy that I know that I get to see every now and then, major tournaments, Chef, he comes up to me, he's like, Tiny, you made the cut. I was like, well, I'm not going to believe that till I hear it from, the TO's mouth, because that seems rather unbelievable. And then, sure enough, I did, and I was all excited until I saw I had to play against one rebel spy, Mike. So here we are, Mike. We're in the top 8, facing off. And Mike, what is your perspective? Mill deck against the Kylo Talzin deck. Are you feeling good?
So I had already beaten this deck 2 out of the 3 times,
Yep.
in that day. So I was feeling pretty okay about it, until you started mentioning your secret tech.
Yeah, I want to comment on this. We played this top 8 really wrong. Like, we did not play it like a top 8 match. We played it like 2 buddies sitting down to play Destiny.
Yeah.
I'm crowing about my secret tech I have for Mill. You offered me a take back at one point. I'm like, what are we doing? This is not how you play tournament Destiny.
Okay, to be fair, this was at what, like 9:30 at night.
That's true.
I'm like totally ready to just be like, all right, Tiny, I kind of want to like leave right now, because my girlfriend and her sister were waiting for me at this like bar that served like vegan food that was supposed to be like insanely good. So I was just like salivating for that food, and it was just such a long day that I didn't really want to be there for another like 3 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just like, personally, like I was fine with it with how that went.
Yeah, I was thinking the same myself. I was like, But I did have my secret tech, and I got to say, Mike, I was really worried that Mill was going to be good, and John and I had been talking, and it just seemed like our deck was too low on force powers. And I went through the force powers. I'm like, they all suck. I'm not playing 2 force waves. I think force wave is not a good card anyway. And he was just like, what about force rend? I was like, no, force rend's freaking terrible. And he's like, it has damage sides, right? And I was like, it does? I didn't know that card had damage sides. And so we thought about it, like it has a 2 gun, a +2 gun. A lot of people are going to kill Kylo first anyway, even though it's probably wrong in most matchups. And then it'll be good against Mill. So sure, we just won't play it most of the day. And if we do and it's free, then we'll overwrite it with a real power. And that's fine, just in case I hit Mill, because I couldn't even conceive of a way of how I beat Mill, right? You have 3 characters. I do consistent damage. I'm not like Joey's deck that had no mercy that could just burst someone down out of nowhere. I'm going to do consistent damage. You're going to shield up. And I'm going to get milled. Like, I know 3PO is going to beat me. You're going to chance cube for 3. You're going to beat me. But I thought with Force Rend, I could just kill everyone but Riken and then just remove 3PO, and how do you win? Like, that was my thought for any of these Riken decks. And what'd you think when I dropped that Force Rend? Like a jackass, I was like, I drew my mill hate. Who would do that? It's so dumb. I'm like revealing my plan before. I'm like an evil villain giving a monologue before he does his deal.
Oh man, like once that came down, I was just like, oh, this isn't great. And then I was just, kind of thinking, okay, I have to remove this die every single round, otherwise it's going to wreck me. And I was not able to remove it every single round, and it did wreck me.
Yeah, and with Mother Talzin, you get to turn it to whatever side you want. It's like, okay, I'll roll out Mother Talzin, make it the special. Do you have removal? No. Okay, I get to choose whatever support or upgrade I want to remove. That's cool.
Yeah, so I think in our 2 games, it destroyed like 3 C3POs and 2 second chances.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that I destroyed one other like not critical card, but I don't remember which one it is. Maybe an air superiority or something.
You could have gotten like a con artist or a chance cube or something like that.
Yeah, but I did really hitting the 3POs was especially our first game. So our first game was really close. By removing, I killed everyone but Riken. Then I removed 3PO, and then it was basically we both only had like 2 cards in hand. I have mill sides. You actually don't even have mill sides. I have damage sides. You don't have damage sides, and so you were in a really impossible spot there at the end.
Yeah, yeah. It was ugly at the end of that game for sure. Yeah, I feel like I don't remember if I had hyperspace back to my battlefield at that point or not. But I don't know. It was just I just got to the position where I just couldn't win.
Yeah, it was interesting for me trying to figure out, do I try to kill you or do I try to mill you? And that game was really long too. It went like 48 minutes or something. And so now we've got to squeeze 2 games in like 40 minutes, which is obviously not going to happen. So I'm even thinking, like, you know, even if we don't finish the next game, I still win. So I'm in incredibly good shape. I do want to ask you a question, though. Early in the day, I had said that I had special tech for mill in case we play. What was going through your head as, like, what would the special tech be in a Talzin Kylo deck?
I don't know. I was thinking, like, is there a blue card that can destroy support? And then wasn't thinking of Force Rend because why would I have thought about Force Rend?
Yeah.
And yeah, that was kind of it. I didn't ever like really expect us to play, even though I probably should have. But yeah, I just wasn't even thinking it.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't play till the top 8. That made it fun.
Yeah.
All right. So we played our second game, and Mike, you got obliterated. I don't exactly know what happened
slaughtered.
in that game.
Yeah.
It went sideways for you.
Yeah, that one wasn't close. You got a couple of really early hits with Kylo, which was very unlucky for me. They were all like 1 in 5s or 2 in 5s.
Yeah.
And knocking off those shields before I could activate Riken made a huge difference.
Yeah. Again, we were playing way too friendly. Where like I rolled in Kylo before you rolled in Jar Jar just to try to move the shields, and then I'm like, just so you know, I'm not an idiot. I know what I'm doing here. I'm doing it to remove the shields, knowing you can Jar Jar and be like, what? Why would you tell your opponent your strategy during the game? What? Oh, it's like I completely forgot what was happening.
I mean, when you play with your good friends, it's hard to put on that serious face.
Yep.
So.
All right. So I was able to dethrone the amazing Rebel Spy, and then the weirdest thing happened. So I move on. I'm checking the bracket, right? So it's like it's going to be me versus Brian, and then Agent of Zion against Joey, assuming like every other tournament I've ever played in the history of my life. There's a bracket, and they're like, and they just go, no, we're not going to do the bracket. Instead, we're just going to like reseed. And I was like, what now? So I have to play against the guy who already beat me, who has a better mirror deck than the Obi-Wan Maz deck that I've beaten several times in the day and don't feel like is that tough for me. That was frustrating because I felt like I probably would have won that. Then I play in the finals against the vehicle deck with Force Rend, and I haven't tested it, so I don't know. I don't know if paying 3 to remove resistance bombers is feasible or not, but I really wanted the chance to find out. And so I was frustrated by it. I didn't really know what to say, right? I was like, so why am I paired against this person? And he was like, that's the pairings. I was like, why? That's not what the bracket says. And he's like, we're not using a bracket. I was like, I don't know what to say at that point, right? You're like, well, I'm not the TO. I've never in my life played in a tournament without a bracket, but I don't know what to say. And I even asked, like, doesn't it say in the rules? And he's like, nope, the rules don't say either way. And I was like, okay, all right. I mean, the guy had nothing to gain either way. I'm not trying to say like there was some shenanigans. It was just a frustrating moment for me.
Yeah, it's just weird.
So we went on. I did not do well against Joey. Like I said, his deck was better for the mirror. Congrats to him. And just to be also clear, I said I thought No Mercy was a terrible card. It was not. I was wrong. It actually was really good in that deck. Not just against me. He No Mercied people all day long. And it was late by that point. That's one of the problems for me is now adjusting to this life where I get up at 5:45 every morning and I'm in bed at 10. Starting a game after my bedtime, that did not go well for me, Mike.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
very
not
tired.
it wasn't only that. It was after playing for 10 hours that day.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's been a very long day. It was past my bedtime, and for the first time ever playing a card game, I felt like the old guy in the room. I was like, "Yeah, you whippersnappers, it's past my bedtime." But yeah, so I got
Yeah.
pretty much wrecked by Joey and his better version, and then he lost to Agent of Zion, who won the tournament. So, congrats to Zion, congrats to Joey, and I do want to give a quick shout out to Joey. He has been like single-handedly keeping this play group at the Collectors Legion in Garden Grove, I think, alive and really working hard to keep this group going. And it's not a giant group, but we had 3 of the top 4 players in the tournament come from that store, and
That's
I
awesome.
think 2 other 6 and 2s from that store, and we only have like 8 people that show up to that store. So if you want to get some real serious Destiny going, Thursday nights you can often find me, John, Joey, and Brian all playing apparently all top players in SoCal. So it's cool to see. It's cool to see Joey, who has been grinding hard for quite a while, really have a moment. I was really rooting for him to beat Voldemort there in the finals. So, Mike, what do you think? Takeaways from the tournament?
Um, I think next time I'm going to be try to be better prepared to play for that long. Um,
What's your
the
what's your
only other
strategy
time,
for that? You say you're going to be better prepared. What does that mean? Are you going to take naps between rounds? What's the plan?
yeah, that seems like a good start. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know, like just have like an actual like decent breakfast in the morning, like good night of sleep before. Maybe have some snacks with me. Make sure I have water. At the end of the night, actually, I bought a water from the shop and just completely forgot to even grab it from the case until like 3 hours later, and I was like, oh, I'm thirsty, and now I remember that I'm thirsty.
That's funny. And these were like summer rave concert level prices for water too. Like these weren't dollar water
Yeah.
bottles.
It was a bit of a gouge in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's all right.
But
I
yeah.
mean, stores got to make their money. I'm always fine. You charge whatever you want. If I don't want to buy your water, I'll bring my own or go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't prohibit you from bringing outside water.
Yeah, it was a really well run tournament. There was a little hiccup, which is really unfortunate in a big tournament where someone checked the wrong box, right? And so everyone's paired, and then it's like, oh my goodness, this person checked the wrong box. I'll fix it, which seems like the right decision for the TO, right? Like I would be outraged if something like that had happened and didn't get fixed. But the downside is when you have a 100-person tournament, it was a big problem. It was like almost an hour to fix the mistake, and that was, for me, that was really hard because it was like right as I was hitting the wall, and then
Yeah.
it was just sitting there forever. And the worst part is I was paired against a mono player, and then it swapped out for a non-mono player. So I was like, come on, you took my free win away? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So that was funny. But overall, I thought it was a really well tournament. Jim ran a great tournament, and the store did wonderfully as well. What was the name of the store again?
At Ease Games. I
At
thought it
Ease
was a really
Games
cool
in
shop,
San
actually.
Diego. Yeah, first time I'd ever been down there. So worked out well all around. I had a good time. So my next question is, Mike, do you feel like our regional was representative of the meta? Do you feel like we have a good snapshot of the meta coming out of this weekend where we had several regionals, or do you think the meta is still up for grabs and people are still grasping about, and next weekend we'll see like 2 other new decks pop up and win everything?
Uh, I'd probably put money on the latter. I think that you'll definitely see some of the decks that did well this weekend. Like even at ours, like you could see patterns where like there were a ton of Obi Maz players, a ton of like Kylo Talzin decks that were doing well. The vehicle decks seemed pretty popular over the weekend at various events. Like Poe decks are still a thing. Mill decks, can win obviously. So I think it's starting to take shape, but I think that there is still plenty of room for people to figure out new decks and surprise people.
Yeah, I think I agree with that take. I feel like all the decks that did well are legit decks, but I also
Hmm.
look at the people piloting them, and they're all Destiny superstars, and so it's kind of like, okay, like if like somebody I'd never heard of popped up and beat a final of like Brian Lindbergh and Taxter and won with a deck, I'd be like, okay, that's a super legit deck. But
Yeah.
like Taxter and Lindbergh in the finals, I'm like, I don't care what decks they have. I assume they're
Yeah,
in the
like
finals,
they're
right?
going to do
And then
well.
Will's in the right on the edge also, or in the finals also, and
Yeah.
and so for me, I feel like that's evidence that there's definitely room for more innovation. Like to me, the fact that Ayla Secura is not one of the top meta decks, that's wrong. She is. She is the best card in Legacies. I'm just going to say it right now. She is the best character in Legacies. The fact that there isn't an elite Ayla deck that is tops means it hasn't been found yet.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
I was this close to playing Ayla 2 Padawans, but I was worried that a lot of people would play the Talzin Kylo deck, and that's the only reason I didn't play it. Otherwise, I would have. I had like 5 games in with that deck, and I just decided I've done the math. I have like 6 games left to play before the event. I can either lock in this deck now or switch to the Kylo Talzin. Whatever decision I make, I'm going with because I get 6 games, period. And you know what, Mike? I got lucky. I got like 9 in. But yeah, so that's why I switched. Were there any decks you were real close to taking, or is it just the Sabine Ezra awfulness?
Uh, I, like my final sort of, like, okay, it's between these 3 decks. The third deck was John Magnuson's Thrawn Talzin deck, which
Hmm,
is actually really sweet.
nice.
But I didn't feel like I had enough games with it. I didn't feel comfortable enough with it to bring it over the mill deck.
I feel like Magnuson is like your Svengali. He's
Yeah,
like, trust
basically.
me, man, this deck is good. And you're like, whatever you say, I will play
Yes, master.
it. He is the rebel spy whisperer.
Yeah.
By the way, not saying his decks aren't good. They are good. I just think it's funny that
Oh yeah.
I feel like you guys are similar, that you both kind of gravitate towards a deck that's not on people's radar. And I think, like I said, that can be really good. When you played that Palpatine deck against me with like Swiftness and other bull crap cards, and surprised me and killed me out of nowhere, I was like, I think this deck is
So
bad, but it's beating me repeatedly. Maybe I'll shut up and say it's not bad.
Yeah.
All right, so let's make a list of our top 5 decks coming out of the weekend that you probably should be ready for. I did not ask you to prepare this, and I did not prepare this. So I'll say one is Rebel Vehicles. I think, first of all, unlike you, I think a lot of people think Rebel Vehicles is really fun to play. I think people like just getting to this overwhelming point where you're like, let me shake my 400 dice. Yes, look at all the guns. Like, I think people really like that style. It won tournaments. People are going to play it. Even if it wasn't the best, people would play it, and I think it's really strong right now. Do you agree?
I agree, other than the fact that people think it's fun. I think it's just mind-numbingly boring as hell.
Yeah, I think it exposes a weakness in your constitution. All
Yeah,
right.
apparently.
What is the deck that you think is in the top 5 right now?
Uh, I'm I gotta say the Kyle Townsend deck. I saw multiple different versions of it there, and even though I beat most of them, I think it has really good matchups against most of the good decks out there, even if they're not even if they're multicolored. Just the consistency that deck provides is just better than any other deck that I've seen in this meta right now. Yeah, I think that's a deck that people definitely need to test against.
Yeah, I agree. I think Mother Talzin Kylo is good. I hesitate to say it's one of the best. I think its consistency helps a lot in an undefined meta.
Mm-hmm.
And as the meta becomes more defined, if it's not monocolor, I think we'll see a little less of it.
Yeah, I think some kind of Talzin deck will remain in the top tier just because
I do too.
of how good she is and how sort of cheap she is point wise.
Yep.
So
I to me it's like Talzin and Ayla are 2 decks that You're just going to see some version emerge as a tier 1 deck because those two characters are cheap and bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've got 2 decks down. The third one, I'm going to say Rebel Mill. I think that's going to hang around for a little while until people figure out how to beat it. And I think Mill's that scary deck that when you don't know how to beat it, it's terrifyingly oppressive. And then as soon as everyone kind of comes together and figures out how to beat it, it just goes away till the next cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know if this will go away to the next cycle. Maybe it's just good enough where it won't.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets the right draws, like it can be just really insane. Like if you get a couple of early scrap heaps and then you're hyperspace jumping and playing fallback and playing your other sort of big blowout removal cards, it kind of doesn't matter what your opponent does a lot of the time, but people actually playing around it correctly and playing against it correctly is going to make a big dent in its impact.
Yeah, especially if it becomes big and people tech in cards for it, then I think it really loses its power.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
All right, what's another deck you think belongs in this mix?
Yeah, I still think it belongs. Okay, so another deck that I saw doing well. I think 5-die villain deck of some kind could pop up and continue to do well. I think there was like a little bit of it at some of the regionals over the past couple weeks. I think I heard that the one that did that top eighted ours was like literally an Empire Award deck. Like, yeah, so that's kind of crazy that it didn't actually have any Legacies cards in it and it still made top 8. If that's the case, then like it's obviously good still. So
yeah, like the night before the event, John called me and he was like, "Hey man, what about a 5-dice villain deck with Talzin?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, that's a real deck. That's a meta deck and it's awesome." He's like, "Let's play it." I was like, "John, that's not how I do things. Like I can't just throw the list together and play it." He's like, "All right, I'll bring it tomorrow morning." And then maybe one of us will play it. And I was like, well, I won't be the one of us. But yeah, he brought it. It's amazing, right? You get all the good cards. It's there's so many new cards. Like Vandalize alone, it seems worth it. So yeah, I think that deck is great. I think there's definitely a place for that in the meta. Oh man, 5th one. I mean, you're gonna see Hondo. I'll just say it. I don't think Hondo's great. I think he is too easy to play around early, and then he's also fragile. So I really don't like the Poe Hondo. The Yoda Hondo is much more interesting to me because you can pack the 3-drops knowing that Yoda will give you money. Whereas with the regular Hondo deck, if you pack all the 3-drops and they don't pay you off, then you can't play anything. And if you don't pack the 3-drops and they pay you off, then you're screwed because you have nothing to spend your money on. And so I feel like it's a very challenging place to be.
Yeah, I think with the right deck build, it could potentially do really well. But then it's also dependent on how your opponent plays. Sort of if they fall into your trap or not. So
yeah, I agree. But I think you're still going to see it for a week or two. It didn't do that great this weekend, so I don't think we'll see as much of it. I assumed we were going to see way more than we did this week.
Yeah, it didn't. I can't remember if it made top 8 at ours, but I know that it did in Madison. I think it made top 4 in Madison, and maybe top 8 in one other.
Yeah, for some reason I'm thinking there was one in our top 8.
Yeah, for some reason I am as well.
All right, I really think though, build an elite Ayla deck. I don't know what that deck is yet. I was trying to actually build a vehicle deck with elite Ayla. That's how I was building a version, and that looked promising. And maybe that's the new incarnation of the vehicle deck, assuming the vehicle deck isn't already elite Ayla. I was thinking it was not, but it'll be kind of funny.
Yeah, it is Ayla.
Is it elite Ayla?
Yeah. So the deck that the vehicle deck that was winning was Ayla plus Rose and Ezra, I think. But
okay, was it elite Ayla, elite Rose?
Yeah. It was Elite
Okay.
Ayla, Elite Rose, and Ezra.
Okay.
Um,
So there you go. So Ayla is in something, but I think also just like a straight damage deck built around Ayla is also going to be really good. I actually think Ayla Padawan is very strong, and then
mhm.
I have an Ayla Poe deck I like a lot as well. I just Ayla's a busted card.
Yeah, she's real good.
All right, well that's our take on the San Diego Regional. You're looking at Mr. Top 8 and Mr. Top 4, and our look at the metagame. Anything you want to throw out there before you go, Mike? Maybe a certain podcast you want to rep. I think it's called the Jedi
Yeah, if you
Council.
guys want to hear a little bit more about my experience in the tournament, I talked about it a bit on the Jedi Trials. And yeah, so check that out.
Yeah, I listened to it. It was rather insightful. If you're curious as to why Mike ran Jar Jar over Ezra, I think it's just simply he wanted to run Jar Jar and look amazing. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. And as always, you can find me on YouTube, on Twitter, Tiny Grimes Games, on Twitch at Tiny Grimes. Not streaming right now. This summer definitely will be. So if you're interested in being in the Tiny Grimes business, go ahead and get going over there. And we'll see you next time on the Smugglers Den.